The fluorescent lights above me buzzed like a swarm of dying insects. My ribs ached with every shallow breath. Dried blood stiffened against my hairline, and my phone felt heavy in my trembling hand. With all the strength I had left, I pressed the screen and called the one person who was supposed to love me through sickness and health, my husband, Jason. He didn't answer. Instead, a single text lit up the cracked screen. "I'm at lunch with my best friend. Can't just leave." I stared at it, stunned. My chest tightened in a way the accident hadn't managed. My fingers hovered, numb, before I finally typed back just 2 letters. "Okay." And right there, in the sterile hum of the ER, our marriage ended. Not when the car spun across the highway. Not when strangers pulled me from twisted metal. Not even when I was wheeled into a hospital bed alone. The ending came with his refusal, dressed up as a text message. You see, betrayal doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. It had been building for months, the faint scent of cologne that wasn't his, late-night phone calls he stepped outside to take, laughter that no longer belonged to me. And of course, the mysterious best friend he never quite introduced. I had tucked every detail away quietly, too afraid to connect the dots. But in that moment, hooked up to IVs with my body broken and my heart shattering, clarity finally struck. Jason had chosen her, or maybe he'd chosen himself. Either way, he hadn't chosen me. What he didn't know was that his careless cruelty had just lit a fire inside me. And soon, that fire would burn his double life to ashes. Before we dive deeper, let me ask you something. Have you ever experienced a betrayal so sharp it felt like the air was knocked out of you? If yes, tell me in the comments. I want to hear your story. And while you're at it, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like this one. Because trust me, you don't want to miss how this one unfolds. Because when Jason thought he had humiliated me, he hadn't realized I was already planning his downfall. Before the car accident, before the hospital bed, before the text that shattered everything, there was us. Me and Jason. We were the couple people envied. At least that's how it looked on the outside. He was charming in a way that pulled people in, the kind of man who knew how to make a room laugh without even trying. And me? I was the steady one, the anchor. Together, we balanced each other, or so I thought. Our story began with thunderstorms. Literally. I remember one night, years ago, when lightning split the sky and thunder shook the walls of our tiny apartment. I was terrified, curled up on the couch, but Jason slid next to me, held my hand, and whispered, "You're safe. I'll always be here." His voice drowned out the storm. I believed him. There were moments of pure beauty, spontaneous road trips with the windows rolled down, music blasting, his hand reaching over to squeeze mine. Sunday mornings spent tangled in blankets, dreaming about our future house, our future kids, our future everything. Back then, I thought I'd found my forever. But forever has cracks. They start small, almost invisible. It was the cologne first. A scent I didn't recognize clinging faintly to his shirt when he came home, late from work. I asked once. He laughed it off. "Oh, a coworker walked by too close. You're imagining things." Then came the phone. He used to leave it on the nightstand, face up, buzzing with harmless notifications. But slowly, it started living in his pocket. Face down. Always angled away from me. When it lit up, he'd turn his body slightly, shielding the glow from my eyes. I told myself I was overthinking. That marriage takes trust. That I had no reason to doubt him. But deep down, a voice whispered, "Something's not right." The laughter changed too. It used to belong to me. The kind that came from inside jokes, silly faces, late-night jokes whispered in the dark. But then one evening, I overheard him in the kitchen, laughing in a way he hadn't laughed with me in months. His voice was lighter, younger, almost in love. When I walked in, he ended the call abruptly. "Work stuff," he said, smiling too wide. I smiled back. But inside, something cracked open. And I felt the first real chill in what I thought was home. And yet, I stayed. I stayed because love convinces you to ignore red flags. I stayed because promises made during thunderstorms are hard to let go of, but I should have known. Storms always return. Storms? Her name was always floating in the background. Jason called her his best friend. A harmless title, a shield. But the truth was, she was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. He'd mention her in passing. I'm grabbing lunch with Sarah. Or, Sarah and I are catching up after work. Casual. Rehearsed. Like it was something I had no right to question. At first, I didn't. I believed him. Everyone's allowed friends, right? But then weeks turned into months, and every story, every excuse, every gap in his schedule seemed to circle back to her. The strangest part? I'd never met her. Not once. Invite her over, I'd suggest lightly, stirring dinner, trying to sound casual. If she's such a good friend, I'd love to get to know her. His fork would pause midair. His smile would flicker, just for a second. Then, like clockwork, he'd brush it off. She's shy. Doesn't like meeting new people. But shy people don't spend hours laughing on the phone. Shy people don't leave lipstick stains on coffee cups I found in the passenger side of his car. Shy people don't text at midnight, buzzing his phone until he turned it face down on the nightstand. The distance between us grew, subtle at first. He stopped asking how my day was, stopped noticing when I wore his favorite blue dress. Our intimacy turned into routine, mechanical, like checking a box on a list. I'd wake in the middle of the night to the glow of his phone, his thumbs moving fast, a smile tugging at his lips. When he realized I was awake, he'd flip it over and mutter, "Go back to sleep." One evening, I tried again. "Jason, who exactly is Sarah to you?" He looked me straight in the eye and said, "Don't be paranoid. She's just a friend." His voice was calm, but his jaw clenched tight. It was the clench that told the truth. That night, while he showered, I sat in the living room staring at my wedding ring. The gold band felt heavier than it ever had before. I whispered to myself, "Friends don't cause this much silence." The pieces were aligning, the cologne, the phone, the laughter, and now, the best friend I wasn't allowed to meet. Something inside me shifted. I stopped being the wife who ignored. I started being the woman who watched, who noticed, who remembered every detail, every inconsistency. Because I knew the storm was coming, and this time I wasn't going to let it destroy me. The impact was like thunder. Metal against metal, glass exploding into a storm of glittering shards. My chest slammed against the seatbelt so hard I thought my ribs had cracked. Then silence, except for the ringing in my ears. I remember blinking, disoriented, tasting copper on my tongue. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone, its screen cracked like a spider web. There was only one person I thought to call, my husband. "Jason," I whispered as the dial tone filled my head. Each ring felt like an eternity. He didn't pick up. Instead, the phone buzzed in my palm with a message. "I'm at lunch with Sarah. Can't just leave." Sarah. Always Sarah. I stared at those words, my ribs aching, my forehead sticky with blood. A nurse's voice called out somewhere in the distance. But I only saw the screen. Cold. Final. I typed 2 letters back. Okay. That was the moment my marriage ended. Not the crash, not the sirens, not the strangers pulling me out of the wreckage. The end came wrapped inside a simple text, his choice laid bare. He wasn't there for me when it mattered most. Hours blurred together in the ER. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like dying insects. Nurses stitched the cut near my hairline, wrapped my ribs, asked if I had someone to pick me up. Yes, I lied. My husband's on his way. But he wasn't. He never came. As I lay there on the thin hospital mattress, pain clawing at every breath, I realized something sharper than the accident itself. His absence hurt worse than the crash. The car had broken my body, but Jason's choice shattered my trust beyond repair. And yet, somewhere deep inside, between the morphine haze and the hollow ache in my chest, a thought formed. Maybe this wasn't the end of me. Maybe it was the beginning of something else. The storm had hit, but I wasn't going to drown. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had someone reveal their true colors in a single moment? I didn't cry. Not that night, not in the hospital, not even when I limped out alone with discharge papers crumpled in my hand. My body screamed in pain, but my heart felt strangely quiet. That silence wasn't weakness. It was the start of something sharper. Jason thought ignoring me was the end of the story. He thought I'd limp home, desperate, clinging to him despite the betrayal. But betrayal has a smell, and I'd been noticing it for months. The faint cologne that wasn't his. Laughter spilling from texts he never let me see. His phone tilting away every time I walked into the room. I didn't scream at him back then. I observed, patient, waiting, collecting. Every late-night meeting he swore was urgent. Every dinner he skipped because Sarah had a crisis. Every credit card bill that didn't add up. I started keeping records, not because I was ready to leave, but because some part of me knew this day would come. And now it had. The car crash wasn't just an accident. It was a spotlight, blinding, painful, but revealing everything I had ignored. He had chosen her over me in the exact moment I needed him most. That choice burned into me like fire, but instead of consuming me, it forged something new. So I made my own choice. The morning after the ER, I walked into a law office downtown. The walls smelled of fresh coffee and ink, the receptionist's nails clicking against her keyboard as she looked up. "How can we help you?" "I need a divorce lawyer," I said, steady, my voice a whisper of steel. Her name was Dana. She wore glasses perched low on her nose and listened with the patience of someone who had seen it all before. I slid everything across her desk, bank statements, credit card receipts, the photos I'd quietly taken when Jason thought I wasn't watching. Dana scanned them, her lips curving into something like approval. "You've done half my work for me," she said. For the first time since the accident, I almost smiled. I walked out of that office with papers in motion, my hands still shaking, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was anticipation. Jason didn't know it yet, but the silence he left me in would be the very thing that undid him. Jason had no idea what was coming. To him, life carried on as usual. His calendar was still full of business meetings that were really stolen afternoons. His texts still buzzed late into the night, his laughter muffled behind the bathroom door. In his mind, I was the same quiet wife who'd turn a blind eye, too timid to question him. But while he was busy living his double life, I was already dismantling it piece by piece. The first crack appeared at work. Dana, my lawyer, had a way of moving quickly. Surgical precision with no wasted motion. Within a week, Jason's HR department was served with a subpoena for financial records. He didn't know yet, but every business dinner he'd expensed with Sarah was now under scrutiny. One coworker later told me his face went pale when he realized his receipts were in question. Meanwhile, whispers started spreading. The night of the accident, when the officer pulled him out of that restaurant, people noticed. His colleagues, his friends, even casual acquaintances, they all began to connect dots. The best friend he never introduced properly was suddenly visible to everyone, and not in the way he wanted. He came home one evening, shoulders tense, muttering about work politics. He dropped his briefcase with a heavy thud, kicked off his shoes, and poured himself a drink. "You wouldn't understand," he said, his eyes avoiding mine. I almost laughed. "Oh, Jason, I understood better than you ever imagined. Because while he was unraveling, I was strengthening. I'd moved money into safe accounts. I'd frozen shared cards. Every thread he thought he controlled was already in my hands. And the silence I gave him, it drove him mad. I didn't fight. I didn't accuse. I simply let him stew in the growing discomfort of a world that no longer bent around him. He would search my face for anger, for confrontation, but all he found was calm. That calm terrified him more than any screaming match could. At night, when he rolled over to his phone buzzing under the pillow, I turned away, my mind racing with the next step. I wasn't just leaving, I was building something bigger. A plan so sharp it would cut him where it hurt most. His pride, his reputation, his carefully crafted image of control. Jason still thought he had time. But by the end of the week, his clock would run out. It started with a phone call Jason couldn't ignore. I was in the kitchen when he stormed through the front door, his tie half loosened, his jaw clenched so tight I could hear his teeth grind. He slammed his phone onto the counter, the screen lighting up with the caller ID. Attorney's office. His eyes burned into mine. "What did you do, Emily?" My heart was calm, steady. What I should have done a long time ago. He paced the room, yanking at his hair, his voice climbing. "They froze my accounts. Do you have any idea what that means? Years of work, gone overnight." I wanted to laugh at the irony. Work? If you call late-night dinners and secret rendezvous work, then yes, years of it were finally catching up. Jason's downfall wasn't just legal, it was public. By the next morning, gossip swirled through his office. The story of the officer pulling him out of that restaurant had spread, exaggerated with every retelling. His wife caught him red-handed. He abandoned her after an accident. He's been cheating for months. Each whisper was a dagger, shredding the image of the respectable man he'd worked so hard to project. But the final blow didn't come from me. It came from her. Sarah. She showed up at his office the same afternoon, tears streaking her face. One of his colleagues later told me the scene was brutal, her voice carrying down the hallway, accusing him of using her, of promising her a life he never intended to give. The office froze, listening. Jason tried to hush her, but she didn't stop. By the time she stormed out, his coworkers couldn't unsee what had been laid bare. Jason wasn't just a liar to me. He was a liar to everyone. That night, he came home broken. His voice had none of the arrogance, none of the sharp edge. He sat at the table, hands shaking, and whispered, "We can fix this, right?" I met his eyes, and for the first time, he saw it. The absolute absence of fear in me. "No, Jason. There's no fixing betrayal." His glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. And in that silence, I knew. He finally understood that the life he thought he controlled was no longer his. Jason wasn't the kind of man to accept defeat quietly. When everything started slipping through his fingers, he did what cowards always do. He tried to spin a new story. He showed up at my door the next morning, flowers in one hand and a forced smile on his lips. "Emily," he said softly, "I made mistakes, but we can work this out. Don't throw away our life over this misunderstanding." I almost laughed. A misunderstanding? My ribs still ached from the accident, my head still bore the scar from the crash, and he had chosen lunch with her over being by my side. "Jason," I said flatly, "you chose your path, now walk it." But he didn't stop. By noon, he was blowing up my phone with messages. "I can explain. They don't have proof. Think about what people will say if you leave me like this." That last one revealed the truth. He didn't care about me. He cared about appearances, about his reputation, about power. So he made his boldest move yet. That evening, as I sat reviewing paperwork with my lawyer, she handed me her phone. "You need to see this." Jason had filed a counter-petition, claiming I was mentally unstable after the accident, that I had fabricated evidence in some kind of emotional breakdown. His words dripped with venom. She is trying to destroy me because she cannot handle her own insecurities. I felt my stomach twist, not with fear, but with fury. He thought he could rewrite the story, paint me as the villain. "Don't worry," my lawyer said, her voice like steel. "We've got him cornered. This will backfire." And backfire it did. Because what Jason didn't know was that Sarah, the best friend, had finally reached her breaking point. My lawyer had already contacted her, and under pressure, Sarah had agreed to testify. Emails, photos, messages, all laid bare. Jason thought he was pulling the strings, but the web he'd spun was already collapsing around him. When he walked into that courtroom a week later, smug and confident, he had no idea that the very woman he betrayed me with would be the one to destroy him. The courtroom smelled faintly of old wood and coffee, the kind of place where truths are stripped bare whether you're ready or not. I sat at the plaintiff's table, my lawyer calm and steady beside me. Jason strutted in like he was stepping onto a stage, his suit crisp, his smirk intact. He believed this was still his show. The judge entered, the room hushed, and then the games began. Jason's lawyer stood first, his words slick as oil. Your Honor, my client has been unfairly maligned. Mrs. Carter, he gestured at me like I was some unruly child, has fabricated stories out of emotional instability after her accident. Jason nodded along, hands folded neatly, eyes darting at the crowd. He was still clinging to his image, still desperate to look like the victim of a hysterical wife. But then, my lawyer stood. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She clicked a button on her laptop, and the screen lit up with a slideshow of text messages. Jason's words, cold, dismissive, undeniable. I'm at lunch with my female best friend. Can't just leave. The courtroom murmured. Jason shifted in his seat, his jaw tightening. And then came the photographs. Grainy, yes, but clear enough. Jason and Sarah together at restaurants, at bars, even leaving a hotel once. Her hand on his arm. Each image was a dagger, each timestamp a nail in the coffin of his lies. Jason's face drained of color. Then the door opened, and Sarah walked in. She looked smaller than I remembered, but her voice carried when she spoke. Yes, we were involved. For 2 years. He told me his marriage was already over. He lied to me too. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Jason slumped in his chair, his hands twitching against the table. His lawyer stammered, tried to object, but the damage was already done. The judge's gavel came down hard. Enough. The evidence speaks for itself. In that moment, Jason wasn't the confident husband, the charming man I had once loved. He was exposed, fragile, desperate, and defeated. And I wasn't broken anymore. I was free. When the gavel struck, the sound echoed like a door slamming shut on the life I used to know. Jason sat there, shoulders caved, his perfect suit wrinkled, his confidence gone. He wasn't a husband anymore. He wasn't even a man in control. He was exposed, naked in truth, every lie stripped away. The judge ruled swiftly. I retained full rights to our home, our shared accounts were split in my favor due to his adultery, and Jason was ordered to cover legal costs. Years of financial stability for him dissolved in minutes. But the real punishment wasn't money. It was silence. Jason's world, once polished and enviable, collapsed around him. His colleagues whispered. His boss quietly moved him off important projects. Friends stopped returning calls. Even his family, once charmed by his facade, began to question everything they thought they knew. And Sarah? She vanished from his side almost immediately, refusing to carry the shame of his lies any longer. I walked out of that courthouse lighter than I had in years. The sun hit my face warm and steady, and I realized something. Vengeance hadn't consumed me. It had freed me. Because true revenge isn't about rage, it's about balance. It's about letting someone face the exact weight of the pain they forced onto you, without lifting a finger more than necessary. Jason destroyed himself. All I did was hand him the mirror. Now when I look back, I don't see the accident or the text or even the courtroom. I see myself standing taller, unshaken, finally choosing me. And maybe that's the lesson. Sometimes the best punishment isn't shouting, it's walking away so completely that they're left with nothing but their own echoes. If you've ever been betrayed and found your way back to strength, you know what I mean. Tell me in the comments, what is the most satisfying moment of justice you've ever seen? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more stories, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that walking away can be the loudest revenge of all.